Fists of the Pharaohs. Boxing in ancient Egypt. The air along the Nile was thick with the smell of damp earth, incense, and the sweat of a gathered crowd. Under the blinding sun, in a courtyard before a temple or perhaps in the wide public square of a bustling city, two men stood facing one another. Their bodies, honed by labor on the river or in the fields, gleamed. Their fists were not yet wrapped in leather that refinement would come from elsewhere, in another age, but were clenched into solid, determined knots of bone and sinew. This was not a chaotic brawl, not a spontaneous outburst of anger. The spectators, ranged in orderly rows, their faces etched with anticipation, told a different story. This was an event. This was boxing. Long before the Greeks gave it a name and built stadiums for it, the civilization of the Pharaohs had already codified the brutal, beautiful drama of fist fighting, weaving it into the very fabric of their society, as ritual, as training, and as spectacle. Our most vivid window into this ancient world is not papyrus scroll, but stone. On the walls of tombs at Beni Hazen, a vast necropolis from Egypt's Middle Kingdom c. 2000 BC, a stunning sequence of carvings and folds. These are not random scenes of violence, they are meticulous, almost pedagogical records. Rows of men are captured in fluid, sequential poses, grappling, wrestling, and, unmistakably, throwing punches. In one detailed panel, two combatants square off. One fighter has launched a wide, arcing blow aimed at his opponent's head, his torso twisted to generate power. His rival raises a forearm in a deliberate, practiced block, his other hand held ready to counter. Their stances are balanced, their feet positioned for stability and mobility. This is not a fleeting snapshot of a fight, it is a frozen moment from a contest governed by understood conventions. The artistry itself confirms its importance. The Egyptians, the people who recorded only what was essential for the afterlife and for eternal memory, chose to immortalize these fighters on the very walls that would guide and define a soul for eternity. Boxing, therefore, was not trivial. It held significance that resonated from the marketplace all the way to the realm of the gods. The context for these contests was often the great religious festivals that punctuated the Egyptian calendar, events like the Hebst or the Opet festival. These were times of communal renewal, dedicated to the gods and the revitalization of the pharaoh's divine strength. In such a charged atmosphere, physical competitions were far more than simple games. They were acts of devotion and displays of the kingdom's vitality. The boxers, by testing their own second power and hek magical energy of action, were enacting a microcosm of the cosmic order, the struggle between *Ma'at order and *Isfet chaos. Their endurance and skill became a metaphor for the pharaoh's own role in maintaining balance in the universe. Victory in the dust of the festival ground was thus a sacred offering, a demonstration that the forces of order, embodied by the disciplined, triumphant fighter, remained supreme. The blood spilled was not merely blood, it was a potent libation affirming the strength of the community. Beyond the temple precincts, boxing served a brutally practical purpose that ensured the state's survival. It was fundamental military training. Egypt's power was projection up the Nile into Nubia, east into Canaan, and west into Libya. While archers and charioteers were the elite, the core of any infantry engagement, once arrows were spent and chariots dispersed, descended into the grim, intimate work of hand-to-hand combat. Here, in the press of bodies, where spears became useless, a soldier's most vital tools were his shield, his short sword or axe, and his own body. Boxing was the perfect simulator for this reality. It conditioned a soldier to close distance without flinching, to absorb shocking impacts to the body and head, and to deliver powerful, short-range blows. It trained the mind to operate through pain, fear, and exhaustion, building the kind of grit that could decide a crumbling battle line. A recruit who could stand and trade blows for hours in the training yard under the sun was a recruit who would hold his ground when the enemy was a breath away. The army did not just want strong men, it wanted men whose spirits were hardened, and the boxing contest was the forge for that particular steel. Yet, to see Egyptian boxing purely as a somber religious rite or grim military drill is to miss a crucial dimension. The Beni Hazen carvings provide the definitive clue: the spectators. Their presence tells us this was public entertainment, a genuine sport that captivated all levels of society. One can imagine the scene: the excited murmur of the crowd, the bets placed on favorites, the gasps at a well-avoided punch, the roar at a clean, staggering hit. The fighters would have been local heroes, men whose names were known in their districts, whose styles were analyzed and debated. This spectatorial aspect reveals a sophisticated social understanding of the contest. The crowd was not watching a lawless fight. They were observing a drama with stakes, rules, and a narrative arc. Their engagement demanded a spectacle that was coherent and compelling, which in turn required that the combatants adhere to a shared framework of acceptable conduct. The public's thirst for a fair and dramatic contest naturally gave rise to the sport as first and written codes. Indeed, while no papyrus has been found titled The Rules of Egyptian Boxing, the evidence strongly suggests a framework of understood conventions. The art itself shows no weapons, no gouging, no biting. The fighters are consistently depicted striking at the head and torso with closed fists, not with open hands or claws. The presence of blocking and defensive footwork implies a mutual agreement to engage in a specific form of combat, not an anything-goes melee. Most significantly, the existence of an audience created an inherent pressure for fairness. A fight ended by a cowardly fallen eye gouge, a strike to the groin would have been seen as a theft, robbing the people of a true verdict and dishonoring the gods in whose name they often fought. While the finish was likely as absolute as in later Greek contests, ending only with the physical collapse or submission of one man, the path to that finish seems to have been bounded by a primal sense of sportsmanship. A referee of sorts, perhaps a priest or respected elder, may have been present to intervene only in the case of the most egregious violations, ensuring the sacred and civic integrity of the spectacle remained intact. The boxers themselves remain semi-anonymous figures, but we can infer their world. They were likely not a professional class but men drawn from all walks of life: farmers, laborers, soldiers whose natural aptitude and courage propelled them into the circle. Their training was the relentless physical labor of ancient life, augmented by specific drills. They would have practiced striking at bundled reeds or leather sacks filled with sand, strengthening their fists and perfecting their combinations. Footwork was drilled on the soft, yielding earth of the riverbank. Learning to pivot and advance without losing balance. There was no protective gear beyond perhaps simple linen hand wraps to prevent the skin from splitting, making the contest one of shocking, visceral impact. A successful fighter carried not just the accolades of the crowd, but tangible rewards: food, linen, perhaps a small grant of land or a ceremonial weapon from a local noble or temple official. His victory brought honor to his Nome district and his family, elevating his status in a highly stratified society. To understand the legacy of Egyptian boxing is to see it not as a dead relic, but as a foundational chapter. It represents the moment the raw, universal impulse for fist fighting was first successfully institutionalized by a great civilization. They moved it from the realm of pure street violence or military drill into a structured, spectator-driven event with religious and civic meaning. In doing so, they established the core triad that would define combat sports for millennia: the fighter as sacred athlete, the contest as public drama, and the practice as essential preparation for war. The Greeks, who would later trade and interact with Egypt, undoubtedly witnessed these contests. While they would later add their own profound innovations: the formal asterisk, palastra asterisk, the asterisk Himades asterisk, the Pan-Hellenic games, the seed of the idea. The vision of organized fist fighting as a spectacle of heroic endurance was already flourishing on the banks of the Nile. The echoes of those long-ago matches still faintly sound. When a modern crowd rises in unison at the anticipation of a clash, or when a fighter endures on sheer will past the point of exhaustion, they are connected to that crowd along the Nile, watching two figures dance a dangerous, brutal ballet under the sun. The fists of the pharaohs were more than weapons. They were instruments of culture, forging a template for how a society channels violence into ritual, tests the mettle of its people, and finds, in the shared suspense of a fight, a profound form of community. In the dust of those ancient courtyards, amidst the chanting and the drumming, the true, enduring spirit of boxing as a test of heart as much as of strength was born.